Germany's Foreign Minister Johann Wadephul has abruptly cancelled his official visit to China, and the reason has left Berlin red-faced. Reports suggest that no senior Chinese officials were willing to meet him, not the foreign minister, not senior Communist Party members, no one. What was supposed to be a routine diplomatic visit to strengthen ties between Europe's largest economy and China has now turned into a major embarrassment for Germany and a clear sign of the growing chill between Beijing and Western capitals. Let us break down what exactly happened, why China refused to engage, and how this incident exposes the deeper cracks in the Sino-German relationship. Welcome back to TFI Global. Wadephul's trip was planned for the last week of October. His mission was to reaffirm dialogue, maintain cooperation, and stabilize relations at a time when global tensions over trade, technology, and security are at peak. But according to diplomatic insiders, the Chinese government showed minimal interest in arranging high-level meetings. There were no confirmed appointments with Foreign Minister Wang Yi nor with any senior official in Beijing. For a visiting foreign minister, such an absence of meetings is effectively a diplomatic dead end. And so, at the last minute, Wadephul called off the trip, officially citing scheduling constraints. But behind closed doors, Berlin admits that the visit was cancelled because China simply did not want to engage. In diplomatic terms, that's a loud and clear message of disapproval. To understand why this happened, we need to look at the broader context. Relations between Germany and China have cooled in recent years. Earlier this year, Berlin released its first ever China strategy outlining a plan to de-risk its economic ties with Beijing. That meant reducing dependence on Chinese supply chains, tightening export controls on sensitive technologies like AI, semiconductors and telecom, and rethinking cooperation in critical infrastructure. Germany said it wasn't decoupling, just protecting its interests. But Beijing saw this as alignment with Washington's containment policy. Chinese state media accused Germany of following the US playbook and warned that such policies would harm what they once called a win-win partnership. Wadephul's cancelled visit appears to be China's retaliation, a quiet but powerful diplomatic snub meant to remind Berlin who holds the cards in this relationship. So who is Johann Wadephul and why is Beijing unhappy with him? A senior figure in Germany's Christian Democratic Union, CDU, Wadephul became foreign minister earlier this year after Annalena Baerbock. In recent speeches, he's called for strategic clarity on China, urging Europe to speak with one voice on issues like Xinjiang, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. These remarks predictably infuriated Chinese diplomats who warned Berlin that such rhetoric could damage trust. And that's exactly what seems to have happened. China has now made it clear that if Germany chooses confrontation, it will respond with isolation. The cancellation isn't just a diplomatic embarrassment, it has serious economic consequences. China remains Germany's largest trading partner, accounting for massive exports in automobiles, machinery, and chemicals. Companies like Volkswagen, Siemens, and BASF have billions invested in China. If political ties deteriorate further, those companies could face reduced market access, supply chain disruptions, and regulatory pushback in China. The Federation of German Industries, BDI, has already sounded the alarm. They're urging Berlin to find a balanced and pragmatic path, one that defends national interests without jeopardizing vital trade. Because for German manufacturers, China isn't just another market. It's their lifeline of their global competitiveness. Back home, this episode has sparked intense political debate. Supporters of Wadephul's approach argue that Germany must stand firm on principles, even if it means losing short-term economic benefits. They say Berlin cannot compromise on human rights or democracy just to protect business interests. But critics argue that Wadephul's confrontational diplomacy risks isolating Germany from both East and the West. Some within the CDU itself worry that alienating China could weaken Germany's influence with Europe and damage its own economic recovery. Either way, the optics are bad. A German foreign minister cancelling his visit because no one wants to meet him is not exactly a show of global leadership. Beyond Germany, this incident reflects a wider geopolitical trend. Relations between China and the European Union have been deteriorating over multiple issues: human rights, technology, and Beijing's refusal to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The European Union has imposed sanctions on Chinese entities. China has responded with countermeasures and a harsh rhetoric. As tensions rise, Beijing has become increasingly selective about to whom it engages with. It prefers dealing with leaders who show mutual respect, meaning those who avoid public criticism or alignment with US policy. By snubbing Wadiful, China is sending a clear signal that Europe can't have it both ways. Moral posturing and economic partnership are no longer compatible. So, where does this leave Germany? Analysts say Berlin faces a difficult choice: either soften its stance and rebuild trust with Beijing, or double down on its values-based approach and align more closely with Washington and Brussels. The first path might preserve trade ties but could be seen as a political weakness. The second path might strengthen Germany's moral standing but at a huge economic cost. Either way, the era of comfortable pragmatism in Sino-German relations is over. Johann Wadiful's cancelled visit is more than a scheduling mishap. It's a reflection of how drastically global diplomacy has changed. For decades, Germany and China built their relationship on economic pragmatism. Today, that foundation is cracking under the weight of ideological divides and geopolitical rivalry. Whether Berlin chooses to recalibrate or confront, one thing is certain: their diplomatic snub marks a turning point in Europe's relations with China. The balance between values and interests, between principles and pragmatism, will define not just Germany's future, but the next chapter of global politics. Thanks for watching.